Hello, my name is Leah Pemberton, and this is my digital art project. In this video, I will be going over my 3 points of why I use digital art and why it is a passion of mine. First point is tools, then will be tips and comparisons between digital art and traditional art. So for tools, I use my Apple Pencil and iPad 7. The cost of that was roughly around $500 to $600, but which is pretty good in terms of digital art supplies. Typically with traditional art, you are spending a lot of money on markers and other art supplies like pens and things like that. So that adds up quite a bit. So to spend $500 to $600 on just my Apple Pencil and my iPad 7 is pretty good for what I'm going for. Another tool you could use is a Wacom tablet, which is usually over $1,000 depending on what you're getting. But I've heard that they are not as responsive or not as sleek of a design as the iPad 7 and the Apple Pencil, which is why I went with that. What helps greatly with the pencil is that it has pressure sensitivity on it, which typically when you're doing digital art, you don't really get that privilege, especially if you're not working with a very nice tablet or if you're working with a mouse or other things like that. What's nice about pressure sensitivity is that when you apply more pressure onto your pen, it will create darker and more sharp lines, whereas if you were to go a little softer, it would be a little more faded and easier to blend lines. So that's what I use to do the digital art that you're seeing right now. As for tips, typically when you're going into digital art, you'll notice lots of differences at first. The first big thing is layers. Layers work on digital art a lot similarly as they do traditionally, except it's a lot more laid out. So you can have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and typically what I'll do is use layer 1 as a sketch layer, create another layer over it, and use my lining layer, which just defines everything, and then I will use the layers underneath my line layer to color everything in. So typically I'll use hair, and that'll be one layer of color, and then it'll be like skin will be another layer of color. And the reason I separate it that way is so that when I go in with my shading, I can just simply select my color layer and fill in the shading through that way, and I don't have to worry about getting the color anywhere where I don't want it, which is another great benefit with doing digital art other than traditional art, where traditionally, like, if you mess up or if you accidentally bump your color somewhere, it's gonna kind of get somewhere and then you have to fix it, all that stuff. But what's nice about digital art is that you can just select whatever layer you're using and just fill it in through there, which is pretty nice. Another thing is adjustable tools. Now, unlike traditional art, digital art allows you to adjust whatever pens or pencils or tools you're using to do your art. So if you're drawing traditionally, if you want to make a line a bit thicker, you'd have to either go over it a few times or you would have to buy another pen that is a bit thicker. Whereas on a digital canvas, you can just either change the size of your pen, or you can even go in and change the width or like how pointed it is after you like flip your pen or whatever. You can change even like the gradients, you can change the opacity, it's all there. And I think the biggest thing when doing digital art, the biggest privilege you have with doing that is you have the entire color wheel at your fingertips. You can use any color you want. You don't have to go out and buy a very specific marker or specific paint. You have every single color right where you need it. And that is something that I think makes it all worth it for digital art for me, is because finding the wrong color is never fun. So the comparison between these two, I think what makes digital art different from traditional art in the biggest sense is, I think the biggest thing, art is always saved to the cloud. It's always saved. You never have to worry about putting it away in a folder or keeping it safe or putting it in a big closet. Like if you have a giant piece, you don't have to worry about storing it anywhere. You can save it all online. It's all in digital files and things like that. And I guess another really big thing is you have an infinite number of tools, and you have an infinite number of colors, as I said before. Tools can be downloaded through the cloud, other artists that create like different kinds of pens and pencils and brushes and things like that to be used on whichever software you're using, and you can always download those and use them. I use Procreate in all of my artworks, so any kind of brushes or pens that were designed by other artists that they have created and are selling or giving away through the internet, I can download those onto my Procreate app and use them as I would like to. And it's pretty nice because like I said, you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of different supplies. You don't have to buy a bunch of different art things or whatever. So it's very nice. Digital art is my preferred media. It's my passion. It's what I've been using for around 2 to 3 years now. But I just got this Apple Pencil, like I said, and the pressure sensitivity is super nice. It definitely helps in my artwork. But if you are any kind of artist, whether that's like a painter or a sculptist, I think at least dipping into digital art is very helpful for a lot of artists because it kind of teaches you, like, we live in a new age, everything's becoming digital, so if you dip into that, if you learn about it, it becomes so easy to do things like concept art or like graphic design or animation because you have all of those tools at your fingertips, and it's portable, it's super easy to use, and I would highly recommend digital art to any up and coming artist.